Westeros and Essos were almost destroyed by the First Long Night and its frozen fuckery. But what was the First Long Night? What happened during it? And how did it come to an end? In A Song of Ice and Fire, the First Long Night occurred about 8,000 years ago when there was a winter that lasted an entire generation. Because remember, in the world of Ice and Fire, seasons last for years at a time. Though typically, it's only like, 2, 3, 4 years at a time for each of the seasons. In the current day of the story, they talk about how the previous summer that has been going on has lasted for 10 years, which is the longest summer on record. It is very unusual for any season to last that long. So when you consider what is said about the original Long Night, it is insane. It's a winter that lasted an entire generation. In the lore, it says that there were children who were born, grew to adulthood, and died without ever seeing a summer. And beyond not seeing a summer, it may have been that they never saw the sun, because a lot of the lore also says that the sun basically went away for the entirety of this event. This, of course, led to mass starvation, mass famine, the dying out of thousands, if not millions, of not only humans, but just, life in general. And in that darkness, in that time of strife and famine and, terror, the others appear. As far as the books are concerned, the origin of the others is not very clear, though we do know that they appeared with the First Long Night. With the First Long Night, they came down from the far, far north, the lands of always winter, and started wreaking additional havoc all across Westeros, and all across really the entire world. Because it's important to remember that the Long Night seems to have been a global event. All of these different cultures have some form of Long Night legend, back in their histories that they reference. In Westeros, they talk primarily about the others, who came down from, the far, far north, as I previously said. They rode giant ice spiders and undead horses. They had crystal weapons that were incredibly sharp, and they used to butcher anyone within their path. In Yi Ti, there is the legend of the long night occurring when the Maid of Light turned her back on the world, essentially taking away the light, the sun, and unleashing untold horrors on the world, which killed everyone, essentially. The Rhoynar, which is the ethnic group that would eventually migrate and integrate with Dorne, they talk about a darkness descending over the world that made the Rhoyne River, which was the source of their life, dwindle and freeze very, very far south, further south than should be possible. So if the Long Night lasted an entire generation, wiping out huge portions of the population and setting literal demons upon the world, what caused it to end? Well, similar to the fact that many regions or cultures around the world have similar stories about the Long Night, they all have unique stories for how it ended. In Ashai, they talk about a hero with a flaming red sword who was able to beat the darkness back, essentially. And the legend of this hero has been taken up by the Lord of Light and R'hllor and that entire religion, and gets pushed forward as Azor Ahai. In Yi Ti, there is the curious legend of this darkness, of this long night, being averted by the actions of a woman with a monkey's tail. There isn't a lot known about it, but for some reason, that worked. With the Rhoynar, there's a legend of a hero who was able to convince some of the lesser gods who were bickering and seemingly causing the Long Night. I believe they were called the Crab King and the Old Man of the River, who were children of Mother Rhoyne being the river goddess that they worshipped. But this hero was able to convince them to stop fighting, put their differences aside, and sing a secret song that was able to bring the sun and the river back. And then in Westeros, we have the legend of the Last Hero. The Last Hero was a warrior during the Long Night who had basically collected a group of people, and they were on a mission together as a group to find the children of the forest, to implore them to help them defeat the others. And they spent years searching for the children in vain as the Long Night continued wreaking havoc. And slowly, that giant group that he had assembled dwindled until he was the last hero. But he was able to find the children, convince them to help, and then together the children with with the forces of the first men, were able to drive the others back into the lands of always winter. Now, while obviously you have to take all of these legends, all of these stories with a grain of salt, I do think that there is an interesting commonality happening here. This phenomenon always reminds me of the story of, Noah's Ark and the Great Flood, because though that exists specifically in, Christian mythology, religious texts, that isn't the only mention of a great flood. Great flood legends and myths occur in multiple cultures across humanity, different religions, all over the place, leading us to believe that while the individual specific stories, probably aren't true, there might be a nugget of truth that is the commonality between all of them. And when you know it within the context of our world, scientists have been able to determine that during the end of the last ice age, when the water levels rose dramatically all across the planet with the northern hemisphere essentially thawing out, there were tons of floods. And so it makes perfect sense that at this kind of one point in human history, flood narratives became very ubiquitous because they were probably occurring all over the place, and it became this universal commonality. So even within the world of Ice and Fire here, there probably weren't crab kings and turtles fighting in a river. There might not have been a last hero exactly. There might not have been a woman with a monkey tail, but there is seemingly a lot of evidence that there was a long night and that there was something that came out of it. Now, this isn't to fully discount things like The Last Hero, Azor Ahai, because that is also a commonality that is appearing in different parts of the world, so I think that there is something to it within this mythos. So along this train of thought, because I have gotten the question before of whether I think that figures like The Last Hero, like Azor Ahai, are the same or are they separate figures that are, doing different things in different parts of the world, I personally lean towards them being the same person. Because like The Long Night, this is an aspect of the story that is appearing repeatedly in different cultures with little details of it changed, which leads me to believe that it is one and the same, that they are one person being interpreted through the lens of these different cultures across that globe. And so when people want to theorize about how maybe certain characters are this person come again, the last hero, but then a different character is Azor Ahai come again, I personally don't really subscribe to that, because I think it is one individual who is just fulfilling the same task in every legend. Anyway, happy spooky season. Okay, goodbye.